Hi everyone. In today's session, let's learn about ethnographic research method, the longest established qualitative approach within the social sciences. Before I discuss about ethnography in detail, I have few questions to ask. Did you any time think about researching on social issues or behaviors that are not yet clearly understood? Did you any time visualize about going to a cult group in a secluded place and understanding their life? Do you want to understand deeply about how people make sense of their life in various cultures? If your answer is yes, ethnography is an appropriate method to answer your queries. What is ethnography? Ethnography literally means description of people. It is important to understand that ethnography deals with people in the collective sense, not with individuals. As such, it is a way of studying people in organized, entering groups, which may be referred as communities or societies. The study of cultures involves an examination of the group's learned and shared behaviors, customs, and beliefs. There are different definitions about ethnography. According to Lockham and Schenschel, ethnography generates explanation of how people think, believe, and behave that are situated in local time and space. Atkinson defined the ethnographic traditions to share common features. They are grounded in commitment of first-hand experience and exploration of particular social and cultural setting. In general, we can understand that ethnography is the art and science of describing a human group, its institutions, interpersonal behaviors, material productions and beliefs. Let's understand the purpose of ethnography. The main purpose of ethnography is to obtain a deep understanding of people and their culture. One of the distinguishing features of ethnography study is fieldwork. Ethnographers immerse themselves in the life of people they study and seek to place the phenomenon studied in their social and cultural context. Now let's look at the history of ethnographic research. I think a brief history of ethnographic research will help us to understand ethnography as a tradition in qualitative research. As I mentioned earlier, ethnography is one of the oldest established qualitative method. The method of ethnography is commonly dated to the period between 19th and early 20th centuries. It developed internally to ethnology, a discipline which in the first half of the 1800s split away from traditional anthropology, which was then dominated by the physical and biological paradigm. The aim of ethnology was to study people and their cultures and classify their salient features through comparison of their materials artifacts. The ethnographers were convinced that the earlier social philosophers were inadequate for understanding the way real people actually lived. Of course, ethnographic methodology did not suddenly blow up in anthropology, rather it arose gradually through the work of various authors. Those in Britain developed one form of ethnographic research. It reflected their fieldwork in areas then still under colonial control. The British emphasized a study of entering institution of society. That approach came to call social anthropology. The most influential social anthropologists of British school were Brown and Malinowski. By contrast, anthropologists in US were interested in studying Native American people whose traditional ways of life had been altered. The US anthropologists could not assume that Native people lived in the context of social institution that represented their indigenous condition. As the ethnographic method has spread across discipline, it has become associated with wide variety of theoretical orientations: structure functionalism, symbolic interactionism, feminism, ethnomethodology, critical theory, cultural studies, and postmodernism. I will discuss about this theoretical orientation in the next session. Now, let's understand the process. The most important question we need to think about the study is whether the present problem is appropriate for an ethnographic research. After that, we need to identify and locate a culture, sharing group to study and select cultural themes or issues to study about the group. In the process, we should also plan the type of ethnography and the fieldwork strategies. As I mentioned earlier, one of the salient features of ethnography is the prolonged fieldwork. So it is important to select the field site, work with it. It is often said that one piece of equipment that an ethnographic researcher ultimately relies on is him or herself. It is all very well to enter the field fully loaded cameras, tape recorder, laptop and so on. But in the last analysis, ethnography means that you as a researcher are interacting on a daily basis with the people being studied. It is therefore critically important for you to begin with an understanding of yourself. What kind of person are you? What type of situations do you find congenial and which would be distasteful? Trust me, if you ask these questions to yourself, it will be more appropriate to start off your work in identifying an appropriate field site. So it's always advisable to start your work with a self-assessment. One of the leading ethnographer, Angosino, has given some guidelines for selecting the field site. According to him, firstly select a site in which the scholarly issue you are exploring is most likely to be seen in a reasonably clear fashion. Then select a site that is comparable to others that have been studied by other researchers, but not that itself been overstudied. Select a site with a minimum of gatekeeping obstacles. Most importantly, select a site in which you will not be more of a burden that you are worth to the community. Now let's discuss about the method of data collection. 4 major methods of data collection in ethnographic research are participant observation, interviews, archival materials, and focus group. Among these 4, participant observation is the most commonly used method in ethnographic research. Participant observation includes entering into physical contact with the reality he or she wants to study. It helps observing what goes on, taking pictures, recording and following conversations, taking field notes in a research diary, and collecting other data that could help to describe and explain the research question. Ideally, an ethnographic researcher should participate in action with a role revealed and observe the phenomenon under study. Hope you got a better understanding about the process of participant observation. Interviews are another important method used by the ethnographers to confirm the information collected through participant observation. Interviews attempts to understand the world from subject's point of view, to unfold the meaning of people's experiences, to uncover their lived world prior to scientific explanations. Interview is a process of directing the conversation so as to collect information. In order to avoid interview bias, you should not ask leading questions. Ignore the interviewee's non-verbal cues including boredom and anger. Ask questions that probe the answers you want. Use nonverbal cues, nodding to indicate that interviews has given the right answers. Let's watch a small video from Siri project.
Ritual art forms. Bhutakola is a unique ritual art form prevailing in Dakshina Kannada.
Spun out of this part. Shiva has this third eye. So it's done from this. So that's why it's called Munda. This is in Tulu, this is called Munda.
What you have seen is the interview I had conducted as part of my research project on psychocultural elements in indigenous healing practices of mental illness in Karnataka. You could understand from the video that many times you will be conducting the research in the natural setting, and we could prepare ourselves to face the challenges in such context. Archival document is the third method often used in ethnographic research. This method also used as a major source to support the data collected through interviews and observations. Some of the characteristics of this method are: it is generally non-reactive, relatively inexpensive, and particularly important when one is interested in studying changing events or behavior over time. Focus group also another method used by many ethnographers. Focus group basically organized and directed by moderator. In the context of ethnographic research, the researcher herself moderate the session. It needs to be systematically organized to gain insight of people about the phenomenon you have taken for the ethnographic research. You may be wondering, what is the use of this tradition counseling and psychotherapy research? On the whole, psychology as a discipline has shown little interest in ethnography as a method. There are also a number of challenging issues arising from the private and confidential nature of therapy and the difficulty for any ethnographer for gaining access to, for instance, an actual psychotherapy session. Even though there are few good studies conducted by researchers in counseling and psychotherapy. Gobrium in 1992 conducted a study to understand ethnography of family therapy. McQuagany and Foncott report on a series of ethnographic studies of 8 contrasting therapeutic communities in the UK and Holland. Boskins and Jeffy use ethnographic method to explore the delivery of health counseling within the network of projects in Southern Africa that had been established to support mothers and their newborn babies. Dreer in 2008 conducted a research on therapy process and outcome. This study considered as the most theoretically ambitious program of ethnographic research in the field of counseling and psychotherapy research. Ethnographic research also open up the broader land between therapy and everyday life, so that we can develop more culturally informed models for theory and practice in counseling and psychotherapy research. Hope you have got a good insight on ethnographic approach to research. Thank you. Have a nice day.
Baby.